All right. Well, welcome. It's wonderful to have you all here. Good morning and good afternoon or good evening, depending on which part of the world you're joining us from today. I am Neha Gupt, Director of the Impact Future Project at Aspire Circle. On behalf of the Aspire team and IFP's Wash and Waste Management Impact Community, I am thrilled to welcome you all to the unveiling of this Wash annual book. This book features the top 10 impact investment ideas with a focus on bringing India closer to its impact future. These investment ideas have been curated and co-authored by the WASH community of leaders on Aspire Impact's the Impact Future project platform. We are also sharing our feed live on YouTube at Aspire's YouTube handle. Well, it's a historic event for us and indeed for all the impact actors and practitioners, all of you who are here on the call with us today. I would like to get started by introducing to you this spectacular community of entrepreneurs, founders, investors, government, and media who met and collaborated several times over the last 1 year for the outcome which we are sharing with the world today. So here is the community at a glance. Thank you. I now invite Amit Bhatia, the founder and managing trustee of Aspire Circle, for his opening remarks. Amit?
Thank you, Neha, and thank you all for joining this meeting. Last year, as Neha just mentioned, we did embark upon this very ambitious project, the Impact Future Project, or IFP. IFP's core purpose was and is to catalyze the imminent impact economy, which embeds impact as an economic concept like risk or return in every business, investment policy, and consumption decision. We decided that we will help build a body of actionable literature on the subject and to advance through this research and knowledge, awareness and advocacy, education and training through this collaborative platform, which engaged over 200 CEOs. We are delighted we found an awesome group for wash and waste management, which was co-chaired by Naina Lal Kidwai, Chair of India Sanitation Council and former CEO of HSPC India, Nikhil Sani, who's Vice Chair and MD of Triveni Turbines, and Vineet Rai, who's Chair of Avishkar Group. That we had to undertake IFP was clear to us since around the world, capitalism was quickly evolving and continues to continuously evolve into impact capitalism or capitalism 2.0 or conscientious capitalism, whatever you choose to call it, wherein impact, the measurable effect of our actions on people or planet, will be reported by all organizations, for-profits and not-for-profits, governments and multilaterals. The idea of impact puts an invisible heart alongside the invisible hand in the construct of impact markets, in the construct and design of a sustainable impact economy. Think of it this way. If 19th century was about return and 20th century about risk and return, this 21st century will be about risk, return, and impact. Just like we learned how to measure risk in the middle of the last century, we are learning how to measure impact as it evolves. Now, we also undertook this because we know this evolution will not be easy for India Inc. For example, just the environment cost of the top 35 Indian companies, as per Harvard Business School study, is $200 billion, dollars, 3 times their net profits. So, how will India Inc. compete in an era of impact capitalism and impact accounting? This DNA change will take time. So IFP took on itself the audacious task of making India Inc. aware of its imminent journey on the three-step impact continuum, from ESG to sustainability to impact. And as a first step, we chose to identify the top 10 investment ideas across 10 sectors, that is 100 ideas in all, to ensure India Inc. embarks on this impact journey before it is too late. These 10 sectors were finance, education, health, agriculture, energy, wash, disabilities, women, manufacturing, and urbanization. We invited about 20 plus leaders in each to deliberate over a year and vote on the top 10 investment themes for this decade, sector by sector. We're delighted to present the third of our 10 research publications by our wash and waste management community today. So I must thank all our community leaders who are present here today, for participating and contributing to this research. So just getting off to a start, these 10 ideas are drinking water, desalination plant, liquid waste management, both black water treatment and gray water treatment, fecal sludge collection and transportation, waste to energy, solid waste management, recycling as one part, collection transportation as another, communal sanitation facilities, and sanitation workers, health, infrastructure, and skilling. Now, our research, and you're going to hear the findings shortly from our community leaders, but I found 5 key trends emerging from this research over the year. 1, proactive government policies like Swachh Bharat Abhiyan or Jal Jeevan Mission or Jal Shakti Mission are leading to ambitious targets and co-opting of help from private sector. 2, public-private partnerships will drive greater investment and revenues as private sector takes bigger share of the pie of sanitation and waste management, hitherto only the domain of municipalities. Third, new technologies, for example, wind or solar water desalination, or robotics-based cleaning systems for sanitation will catalyze new investments. Fourth, it is evolved consciousness of climate change, which is leading to behavior changes, in waste segregation, greater recycling, water to energy, growth, and new policies like banning single-use plastic. And fifth and finally, corporate ESG sustainability and impact assessment and reporting is going to lead to greater participation from the private sector in wash and waste management, primarily as business and complementing their CSR. So friends, I can't help but thank you all for joining this call today as we present to you a 1-year effort of research in identifying the top 10 investment ideas in wash waste management. And our research says that these ideas by 2030 will annually attract $8 billion in investment, create additional $75 billion in revenues, create 1.2 million new jobs, and impact 1.1 billion Indians. That's the promise of impact in WASH, and I'm going to let my colleagues and our community co-leaders present the same. Thank you for being here. Back to you, Neha. You're on mute, Neha.
Sorry, thank you, Amit. Well, our knowledge partner is India Sanitation Coalition, FICCI, represented by Natasha Patel. I believe she's having some trouble joining in. So she is to give a sector overview, which I'll request Amit to step in for. After the sector overview, it's our co-chair, Naina Lalkidwai, and our community leader, Pranshu Singhal, founder of Karo Sambhav, will present the findings of the report. So Amit, over to you one more time. Please step in for Natasha.
Okay, Natasha, whenever you walk in, please feel free to take over. But if Natasha was here, she would have proudly presented this group itself on the next slide, which if you guys can proceed and show. This was the group that deliberated for over a year. So we had 18 authors supported by a research team both at Aspire Circle and India Sanitation Council. And this effort has been made possible by a generous grant from Capgemini, with knowledge leadership from India Sanitation Council, a data partner, because at the end of the research, you'll find 100 startups in wash and waste management and their investors. And that's, Traction database makes that possible. And of course, we had industry insights from Toilet Board Coalition. So thank you all for being here. And at the outset, we wanted to put out high level numbers of what would this journey look like for the full wash and waste management sector collectively. And as you can see in the top two graphs on revenue and investments, the orange, shaded bar is the top 10 ideas, while the blue is the rest of wash waste management sector. And these top 10 ideas, as you can see, are going to grow from 30 billion in revenues to 75 billion in revenues over this next 10 years. And looking at it, one's got to say, well, this is going to be, an exciting sector. And I think companies that are going to take such an audacious challenge and, scale companies profitably are going to, in 10 years, be laughing that they knew how to be at the right place at the right time. And annually, the sector is going to attract 8 billion in investments. I mentioned earlier 1.1 billion of people impacted and 1.2 million new jobs created. And this by itself gives you that collectively waste and wash management sector. And this is only private sector investment. There are no government numbers in this, but government purchases from private sector, they are part of this, forecast. So we believe we have a huge, huge potential. And this research and today's meeting is about this extra $45 billion of revenue that will get created in this decade, and who will get this right, and which idea and theme is going to scale more. Let's keep going to the ideas and yep. Thanks.
Naina, ma'am, over to you.
Right, thank you. And Amit, you've indicated very clearly what the scale of opportunity is that exists across this spectrum of sanitation and water. And I do believe that the time has come for industry, for entrepreneurs to come into these fields, which we will highlight to you as opportunities, which will then create this industry, the jobs, the entrepreneurs who, while providing very critical public goods, gives us also the opportunity to ensure that we have a flourishing industry that is able to do the right thing for us in the process of delivering these public goods. So look at that first opportunity, drinking water. That's really the packaged water and purifies sort of space. Studies have shown that 170 million Indians still lack access to safe and clean drinking water, and that 75% of Indian households do not have access to tap drinking water. And while the latter is being sought to be addressed in terms of provision of water, where there's to be a tap provided in each household, ideally as per government's program from the Jal Shakti Ministry, at the end of the day, we still struggle to get clean drinking water into the homes and households. So this was one opportunity which we think is important. There are players in there. Some of the names have in fact been shared on this slide, but we do think that this industry is one that is waiting to arrive. The opportunity is enormous with what we believe in terms of share of investments. That's over $6 billion that could happen. Revenues of 66 billion US dollars, and the number of jobs really also coming through in a major way. A second area is desalination plants. India's coastline really helps. The issue right now is cost, which is seen as being very expensive in terms of generation of water. The market, valued at $940 million in 2018, is expected to reach 1.4 billion by 2024. And we do believe the country is one of the top 10 desalination markets in the world. And particularly with the key advancements in solar and wave-powered plants, what we do is take care of one very important aspect of the cost, which enables the desalination plant to be that much more economical to bring in. A third area is the whole area of liquid waste management. Now, many of you who have engaged with us in the India Sanitation Coalition know that our view has long been about build, use, maintain, and treat. It's not enough to just shovel the shit into toilets. You have to be able to treat it, because otherwise we run the risk of it going back exactly where we had removed it from the fields, from sewage, open drains, all of which was what we were seeking to address by making sure that it was funneled into a hygienic environment like the toilets. So the last thing we need is for that shit to find its way right back to where we had taken it out of. And hence the treatment becomes important. Now that treatment gives opportunities both in terms of wealth, as in if properly treated, we not only save water from it, but also get fertilizer, which is rich in nutrients and can go back into products and into the agricultural processes, food and non-food. So right now there are 920 sewage treatment plants in India, which only 615 are operational. And we believe that the opportunity of setting up new plants, putting old ones back into function, having distributed sewage treatment as in small plants versus the large old style type of plants are all opportunities for industry, for entrepreneurs, for MSMEs to step into, depending on the scale and size of the plant that is being instituted. A related fourth area is the liquid waste management area in terms of grey water treatment. And this has now come into focus for the first time also by the Jal Shakti Ministry and as part of the Swachh Bharat forward-looking plans, where in developing countries like India, while more than 80% of all the wastewater is just left untreated and discharged back into the environment, it pollutes rivers, lakes, oceans. And we now have players like Triveni Engineering who sat on a lot of the dialogue and discussion in this forum with us, and companies like Thermax, which are looking to treat this grey water. Grey water is not sewage, it's water that would come from washing, bathing, etc. And treated, again, it puts it right back into the system and enables us to use and reuse. So here again, a huge opportunity. And then there's the whole space of fecal sludge collection and transportation. We are used to seeing these trucks running around the cities. We call them honeysuckers. We believe the fecal sludge management area is expected to be in the region of $2 billion by 2030. And India, in fact, is one of the first countries to announce a national policy on fecal sludge and septage management. So it's everything from the point where it is picked up to the transportation to the treatment that needs addressing, and indeed the opportunity, therefore, that this provides. So lots of excitement for the sector. There is, of course, focus from the government. I do believe that the eco-environment is being looked at as one that is enabling, that one that is encouraging, that is one that brings in entrepreneurs and private sector and business in provision of these important public services and goods. Back over to you, Amit.
Thank you, Naina ma'am. We will let Pranshu take the next 5 ideas. Pranshu, over to you.
Thank you, Neha, and greetings, everyone. Uh, so the next 5 ideas focus on solid waste management, and here we are looking at solid waste management in entirety, not just the traditional way we have looked at solid waste. We are looking at multiple varieties of new waste which is going to enter the market. And we are starting to see those new models which are coming up, and the sanitation aspect. So how are we managing sanitation? So I'll start with the solid waste management, and especially with the advent of extended producer responsibility as a policy principle, as well as a whole dialogue on circularity being initiated by Niti Aayog. We are seeing a very drastic, I would say, positive change in this whole sphere. A whole range of new companies have come up. Many names have come. A lot of innovation is happening, and the whole policy environment is allowing the space to grow. The belief is this will grow from a few hundred million to almost $1 billion worth of industry within this decade itself. And the larger body of work would be centered around designing of collection systems, because we are still relying on municipal corporations to collect majority of the waste. So a good body of work could be done on how do we set up large scale collection systems, how do we engage people. A second body of work would be on recycling. So once collected, how do we manage multiple varieties of waste that are being collected? And a whole range of players are appearing in this space. And waste which cannot be recycled can then be sent for waste to energy plants for recovery purposes. So again, these three are very interconnected spaces, very difficult to even segregate at times. So we will see a whole range of innovations happening in this space. And again, I would say policy is going to play a very, very important role. This sector also, we will see significant advancement on technologies which are being introduced because of circularity principles. Very soon, under the circular committees, there has been dialogue of introducing secondary material back into the products. So that is another push which will enable the first three sectors of solid waste management, collection, recycling, and waste to energy grow very significantly. The last two parts on the investment ideas are focused on sanitation. So one is about how do we build sanitation facilities across the country. While a lot of work has been done, especially India declared itself open defecation free in October 2019, there is still work to be done in this space. And again, a whole range of innovation and new sort of companies are getting into this space. But I think one of the things which came up for the group as a concern was about the sanitation workers who are involved in managing the infrastructure. And over 1 million sanitation workers have died in the last 50 years in this space. So, and finally, we are starting to see advent of new technologies, new solutions to solve this problem at scale. So these are some of the sectors, as the next 5 investment ideas, which we all believe will grow very, very significantly and will enable a deep circular economy in India. Over to you, Neha.
Thank you, Pranshu. And also, I would like to thank you, Amit and Naina ma'am. Friends, I would now like to invite Urmi Goswami. Urmi Goswami is the assistant editor at Economic Times. She reports and writes on environment, climate change, and sustainable development. Her engagement with issues related to environment, climate change, and all of these other development things, she has been working on these for a very long time and also has been reporting on these innumerable such things at international negotiations on environment. Urmi will anchor the next segment and engage with the leaders and our special guests of the WASH community in an interactive dialogue. I request all in the audience and the other journalists that we have present today to send your questions in the chat box to me for the Q&A round after the interactive dialogue. So for now, Urmi, over to you.
Yeah, we have to unmute, please.
Okay,
Good.
here I am. Thank you so much, Neha, for the introduction, and we should get moving to this discussion because there are a large number of questions, and so I'd like to sort of focus first uh, on the toilet issue, and I have a question for Ms. Naina Lalkidwai, which is basically uh, relates to the bit about fecal sludge management, which continues to be a problem. And now that we have a national policy in place, and this is projected to be a $2 billion market till 2030. What kind of momentum are you seeing on the ground that gives you this confidence that this is a market that will will actually attract investment?
So there are two things that are happening here, Urmi, which is quite interesting to see. One is at the state government levels, we have had some states actually go out and put out RFPs, requests for proposals, where they have asked for bids to come in for what is small fecal sludge management plants. So this is away from the old Western model or the model which we had, which was these huge sewage facilities, which, one facility cleans the whole city, sort of approach to a much more distributed model. And this is the model that has worked in many countries across Asia, Indonesia, Malaysia, and India's now also embraced it. I don't see this completely replacing the large plants, but it supplements that in a major way. And so we've seen this go out in Andhra Pradesh, in Bhubaneswar, and such places, and it's been well bid by private sector players who've come in. They've tended to be small players, sometimes even first-time players. The large companies, the Larsen & Toubros, etc., have found this a bit difficult to bid for, simply because the plants in themselves are small, and the contracts are therefore smaller than they would normally bid for. However, they play in a different space. They would play alongside institutional players. So every big, large building complex today, every hospital, every hotel is now required to do its own level of treatment. And these plants are therefore private sector to private sector type of engagement as well, are also seeing a lot of bidding by the larger sort of companies. So we've got a space that, A, because of regulation, it is being required, and B, because of the state governments embracing this and looking at investing in it, bringing industry in. So many models are emerging as we go forward, and it's going to be quite important to ensure that where it is instituted with the state government, payments are made on time, contracts are fully understood and adhered to, because that is usually a degree of nervousness that entrepreneurs have on dealing with, say, the municipality or dealing with the state. And of course, private to private, to make sure that it's not just the tick box of setting up the plant, but the plant has to be maintained and run properly. Otherwise, the purpose will not be served.
Okay, thank you so much for giving us sort of this insight into this market, and it's interesting that you highlight the fact that this is not in that sense a purely private venture. It has to be with and in participation with government or whichever level of government. And that has been a bit of a problem always, hasn't it been? Finding that right sort of the right, the sweet spot of interacting with government, especially when you're looking at local government. How do we sort of overcome that bit of a problem? Because that would be something that runs through virtually each one of these areas. How, because many of these things will be with local government. How do we get over this lack of systems or lack of trust or working experience with local self-government?
Yeah, I think just having very solid contracts, one which are well understood, and we do have this experience of good experience as well, and it particularly comes from those that were funded, for example, by the World Bank and others, because there was much more attention given to the contract and the financing therein. So I think looking at those structures and replicating that would be important. But I don't want you to go away thinking that everything is to do with government. There's a huge market out there, which is private sector, as I mentioned. So, you can win contracts from a building company, as in a builder who has put up a huge complex, from a hospital, from hotels, from institutions who are required to have these plants. And then your client is not government at all, but it's the private sector.
Private sector. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. I now move on to Pranshu Singhal. And this is, of course, the focus is on waste generation. And as we grow, we are going to generate more waste. And clearly there is a need to recycle. If you look at the environmental concerns today, there is no way out of recycling. What are the models you think which could make the recycling sector a profitable one? I mean, that's my first question to you. But more importantly, the other thing I want to focus on is that this is impact investment is not about just investing. It's not just about making the cents and dollars or the rupees and the pesos. But the fact of the matter remains that even in your work, in your thing, the design in your waste, in waste management still depends a lot on informal labor. And that continues to be an issue. We have seen how that becomes an issue. So I want you to address, of course, how do you see this as a profitable sector? But clearly that end of the recycling end of it, of course, but on the impact end of it, I want to understand, how do you see ventures like yours actually making a difference in terms of the getting more people into a formalized sector where they have a social net and so on? How do we make that change that requires to be made?
Sure. Thank you, Umi. So to answer first, I don't think there is any one fixed model which will give us success if we have to solve the waste management problem at scale. Even if you look at change that has happened in the last 5 years and now, you would see amazing amount of innovation, and we have a lot of people in the room, right from Manik, who is present here. We have seen a great amount of innovation happening. And I would say why it has happened is because there has been a policy push towards ensuring higher amount of waste is being collected and recycled. And I believe if we can do better on our policy work, create much stronger frameworks, keep them revising time and again if there are loopholes appearing, I think it will lead to better systems. This space of waste consists of, for me, 3 or 4 broad buckets. The very first is the space of collection. How do we collect waste from the market? And this is largely informal. We can say, the largest body of work in this space is informal. There is some amount of waste which municipality collects, but if we go away from municipal systems, there are hardly any privately held systems which are collecting waste today. And if we are to make the sector profitable, this needs to click, which means consumers need to hold accountability. Consumers will need to And it is not about, I'm putting, passing the accountability to them. I'm saying everyone will have to really take ownership of this. Waste segregation right at the time when we are generating it into as many fractions as possible will allow so much better recycling, because today what we get is a melee of waste into a recycling plant, and which makes it virtually impossible to recycle anything. So the more we invest into behavioral change systems, and here again, a lot of communication systems would work, and one can think of better models for collection. If we talk of integration of informal in the formal sector, this is the place, the collection systems is the place where you will see the massive change coming. And again, we have very good body of work happening in this, where because of EPR, collection systems are now being created where informal sector is being formalized. And that formalization is by linking them to existing government schemes, by providing a regular salary, by helping them open their own firms. In our own system, for example, of Karo, Sambhav, we have over 5,000 odd waste pickers and aggregators who have been formalized. And I think in this room itself, there will be many, you will find hundreds of solutions where this has been done very systemically. So
I just want to come in here, and, if you could also highlight one of the issues which I understand is that while we can get the household level to segregate with all the assistance and help of NGOs and workers, as you've described, that we still have many municipalities which, at having collected through all this effort, will still go and mix it at different levels, because there's so many collection points that they have at different layers and levels that in fact the effort made at the household level is not seen through by the municipality, and we're going to need some disciplining there by the sound of it. So, if you could just comment on what's going on there in terms of final outcomes.
But and I want to add to Ms. Kadwai's question. Though she did mention that there's been some effort of segregation at the household level, I frankly disagree with that anecdotally and practically. We, at least in the city of Delhi, you don't see that happening. So clearly, both things need to happen. And perhaps, I would wonder if you think the municipality becomes the core player here, because in educating itself and then pushing both itself and other consumers, if that's the way out, and if there is a space for anybody else to actually help make this impact, because this is the critical impact.
I think a lot of it has to do with our own experiences. So unless we as citizens don't see the change, we don't experience it. So I may want to segregate it, but if I go and see that the waste is mixed, we don't segregate ourselves. So I think if we can, we'll have to, and we are again seeing a lot of systems which are experiential, where people are walking into a collection center, seeing what is happening with the waste, and are being satisfied with the work. And that leads to a community pressure being built on many other people to become a part. So I think a lot of innovation is going to come in collection systems, because this is the biggest cues. Recycling for me is the easier part, because if we are able to collect better, segregate it better, transport it better, recycling is technology. We'll have enough and more solutions for recycling, but if we are able to segregate, if we are able to bring it in the right way to a recycler. And then as we are moving in this space of circular economy, as more and more policies start pushing integration of recycled content into new products, we will see so much more profitability coming in the recycler space, because today recyclers are struggling. First, waste is not coming, or if it is coming, it is too messed up. And second, what do I do with the output fractions? So if I have a clean way of utilizing the output fractions, I think we are talking of a very, very good, profitable industry. However, there are also certain checks and balances which I believe we'll have to bring in. And those checks and balances are on good governance. How do we ensure that we maintain ethics of the sector? We have a whole range of child labor, women, unsafe practices, too many issues in the sector at this point in time, to a whole range of corrupt practices. So how do we create systems which can enable better monitoring and development of new standards to solve this problem at scale? If we are able to do this, I think we are in a good space.
But that would require a fairer degree, a broader degree of what you call formalization, right? The moment I start bringing in standards, which is good for the workers, for those who are involved, good for citizenry, and definitely good for recycling, because you will have better products, better collection systems. But I was wondering one more thing before I let you go. India has prided itself consistently in terms of this waste management, at least this kind of waste management, that we have a traditional system of, kabadi and this and that. And therefore some level of, segregated waste happens. I was thinking really in terms of how it is often seen as, if I may use a budgetary term, revenue stream for a household. It's a recovery of some of the costs made. How do we keep that alive? Because that becomes an incentive. And when we look abroad, we are seeing, in Germany, they put a return value on the bottle, things that are already part of our culture. How do we integrate that older system, and perhaps even the older players, into a new system which is more professional and thereby more profitable, also profitable not just in terms of the money it makes, but in terms of the collection it does?
So I look at, I face this question for too many times.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and the challenge for me is when I look at the Indian system, yes, we had great practices, but what is the intent behind the practices? So when we at our home sell our waste to a kabadi wala, are we doing it with the intent of getting it recycled, or we are just doing it because we get some money? I think we'll have to mix intent. Yeah, we'll have to mix intent by working working real hard on ensuring that people understand that it is an ought to do rather than a good to do thing.
Right.
It's actually a must to do at this point in time. And yes, it is good that it fetches you money, but you still, even if it does not, you must continue to do it, because this whole expectation of money is also creating so much challenges in waste management. We see it in electronics, we see it in the more high value of the products, that have been sold, the worse the problem becomes. So if you were to, go for a mattress collection, someone has bought a mattress for 10,000 rupees, they will not give it. It's actually a negative return product. Someone will have to invest in recycling a mattress, or in many cases, certain types of electronic products. But the expectation of people is I'll get a significant money because that's the habit I've gotten into. So intent has to be bought in here.
True, but I think I think your next challenge would be in this case finding that happy spot, and finding that happy spot between the two, and perhaps we will move on, because this is a problem that, as you said, far too many times you ask this question, so therefore we keep asking. So now I'm going to move on to something else and leave.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Just a little time sanity check. I hope.
I'm just moving on to the next question, to the next person. So thank you so much, Pranshu, for your time. I now want to move on to a related issue, and that relates to sanitation workers. And my question is for Nimisha. India has 5 million sanitation workers, and your report identifies their skilling and safety equipment as top 10 idea. Is India or Indians ready to pay for the sanitation workers? Basically, are we ready to pay for the service, or is it a bit like the Kavari question? We're so used to the old ways that we are not ready to move on.
Well, I think this is one of the most crucial questions which relates to social and human rights issues. So let me answer that from that first aspect. I have seen that there is a need for sensitization across the entire administrative chain, that no human being should experience and endure the hazards of manual scavenging, for example, in case of sanitation space, but including in other waste management spaces like, say, solid waste segregation, etc. Because that is the minimum, minimum safety can be afforded by any society, and I don't think GDP or state of the economic affairs matters to that.
It's
But
about the people thing, isn't it? It's about how we approach the idea of thing. But I mean, I'm sorry that I'm going to be rushing a little bit.
No. So let me answer that second part, which you were specifically asking, is that can we afford it? I think yes, and there are two routes to that. One is innovation, and we have seen in the past that there are some very compelling startups who have shown country relevant technologies to be developed in this space, so that manual scavenging and such efforts can be supplemented with this without taking them out of job. I think so. That is one. The infinite inventive prowess of the country can be leveraged for that. And secondly, of course, this equipment will have capex cost, but then as we can take leaf from other sectors like software and convert it into a service rather than a product, and that can help make these services affordable and accessible.
Yeah, but basically it does involve somebody stepping in, some company stepping in and seeing it as an option, some entrepreneur stepping in and putting their this thing about human rights that you mentioned right up in the beginning. Thank you so much, Nimish, for giving us for answering this. I'm going to sort of get into a little buzzer round mode. I apologize to everybody for that. This is for Venugopal Gupta. Again, we are still, obviously it's wash, so we are still in the broad area of waste. STP is among the most scaled wash and waste markets with collective revenues of 1.8 billion in 2020. You're projecting a 2.5 times growth. Will this continue to be led by engineering companies, or will we see new business models emerge?
I think we will certainly see new business models emerge. There are three imperatives that are scaling this growth or fueling this growth. One is the imperative of speed. We need more sewage treatment plants and faster and less expensive. The other is the imperative of resource recovery. I mean, no longer is neutralization equal to treatment. I think, the world is moving towards how we can do resource recovery from waste. And I think a more recent addition to this imperative has been also COVID. Is there a way we can use wastewater to tell us about community health? And I think these three imperatives are taking, bringing new innovations and new business models. We are seeing decentralized solutions, so cheaper, rapidly deployable, community-level sewage treatment plants, that work at a fraction of the cost and are rapidly deployable. We are seeing circular sanitation models in sewage treatment, wherein they're able to extract some energy, some fertilizer, etc., and reclaim water, of course. And we are also seeing sensors and artificial intelligence-based models which can sense the sewage for health markers. They can do COVID sensing. These models are working.
The technology is there,
yeah,
and that can be an aid in this effort. Right? I mean,
absolutely.
That's critically. So this becomes like a technology heavy initiative in this case to get the most out of it.
I think it's certainly technology heavy, but it's being spurred. I must give credit to government because of their Amrut and SBM 2.0 schemes, which are creating this huge demand ecosystem.
Right.
For sewage treatment, and at the same time we realize that the existing capacity is not even single-digit % of where we need to be. So I think both these sort of imperatives are driving the sort of next phase, I would say, of this sector.
Okay, thank you so much. My next question is from Manoj Gulati. I'm sorry, this is really like a buzzer round that I've made it into. So, and this relates to drinking water. And my question, of course, to you is we are in this world right now where we have to minimize waste, right? And not only waste of, therefore that means using less resource for more value, but also it means wasting less resource while trying to get value. Water is one area where we have seen, because we don't get good quality water, households end up opting to use systems which waste resource. So when you use an RO, a lot of water gets wasted, and I know that's created an industry of its own, the anti-RO sort of setup. My question to you is very simple: how do we move to a place where where you can actually get potable water with and minimize waste at the same time?
Uh, Thanks, Urmi. Good pertinent question. And the first part of it, we have to take a little bit of a balanced view to answer this question. And this is in context to the growing awareness, thanks to the Jal Jeevan mission that has been there for the last couple of years, thanks to the FHTC, the Functional Household Tap Connectivity Program, which promises to supply 10,500 standard water supply to each household. So there is work being done at the government side, but that's not enough for now. I think the big question that we need to first ask is, if we have an RO at home, then we need to also break behavior change, not just for the people where we are going to be setting up the RO plants, but even for ourselves in the way we do it. That's important that everybody then changes the step. So many of the new demands that, RO is bad to set up an RO plant is not a bad, is actually the poor people today ask for as much as a good water as what it is. I'll give you some data to back it up. And this is all happened because of COVID. It's happened because of the government awareness. It's happened because of the growing economy. And it's happened because of the overall people have started to realize that health is a very important aspect.
Right.
That drinking clean water is a key aspect of their lives. Water.org does, and our primary business is to support, as we are catalytic acid enablers for the financial institutions who end up providing a wash loan for water and sanitation. And over 33 lakh loans have happened. In 2018, water quality, which is effectively water filter, was only 2% of the entire wash portfolio for the country. Today, it's over 10%. That means there's a growing 5-fold demand in over 3 years that has happened because of awareness. People are now, the poorest people, ultra poor people, are demanding clean drinking water. So what do we do at this stage to solve this problem and ensure that they get clean drinking? I think first thing we need to do is a heavy amount of education that what is known as the reject water from the RO. If you're going to use the RO, then the reject water can be used for other purposes.
Right.
Right? You can use it for bathing, for gardening purposes, for mopping purposes, for cleaning purposes. And a simple soak pit constructed is a key solution to it. There are a lot of housing schemes that are coming. So, many CM and prime ministers for the low-income housing schemes. At the design stage, we need to segregate the gray water as well as the wastewater, which can be used for this purpose. So if we, at the kitchen itself, we create a separate pipeline which goes to the soak pit, we solved a lot of problem at that stage.
But, I just wanted to quickly stop you also, because we're sort of running out of time, but I wanted to ask you one thing very quickly. Many of the problems and many of the interventions that all of you are talking about, so this is a question to you and anybody else who wants to sort of weigh in, is many of these are actually because of failures in providing basic services that should have been provided in the first place. Are we making are we kind of creating a situation where we are not addressing some of the basic issues that should have been addressed in the first place? If I take the case of water, there is no good reason why the water in the first place should be such that I require RO to be able to drink it, right? Or segregation. Why isn't it become something that we push at household level through children and schools, that they segregate the garbage in their house? So I'm wondering whether we are adding to a problem.
Yeah, but Urmi, I mean, what is done is done. the reality of the country is as much known to you as to me, that, we do not have the infrastructure, and it will take us time to build the infrastructure. So this question is, during this period of time, for water specifically, how can we solve the problem so that the people start getting clean drinking water today, while we get time for the infra to be built?
Right. Okay.
That's the kind of approach we have to take. We can't keep sitting on that.
We can't look for the ideal. But to bring in terms of
I just want to give very quickly so that I can put, in the rural Indias, for instance, community water purification plants are being established. And this is a known concept. But what is happening, the change is happening, is they're using blended financing as a model, where they're saying the SHG women are actually becoming equity members for the entire water for their area. And rather than each person having their own RO system, they're using a hub and spoke model to distribute 20-liter jerry can per day at something like 30 paise per liter.
Right.
Now that is a solution which actually ensures that the people are getting the clean drinking water while the infrastructure is coming up to their locations.
Right. Okay. So that becomes like an opportunity, a stopgap, and also about its course correction as well.
And income generation Correct.
Yeah. The only fear is that we once we create opportunities in our malformation, getting into course correction becomes difficult. I have one question from the audience, and this is actually for Pranshu. I'm sorry, but I see something. I actually see something in the question which I would like anybody else to step in and answer as well. Basically, it's really about how do you create the kind of awareness that is required for efficient ways to ensure waste segregation at source. So this is a question. Actually, I would like to direct it to Amit, and who I wasn't able to get to in the main, Amit Bhatia or Manik Dhingra. Either one of you, in terms of your own sector, how do you see creating awareness becoming a critical issue that can support the investments being made by people to be actually more fruitful, both in terms of getting the end result you want, and of course solution and profitability for investors.
Thank you for your question, Urmi. We just concluded a similar meeting yesterday wherein we had industry representation from the power sector, from the cement sector, and everybody could not emphasize enough the need for segregation at source. But at the same time, there was a view going around the room that who will actually bell the cat, because in enabling better segregation at source, it is actually difficult to make a profitable business model out of solving this problem.
Right.
So we were speaking about at an industry level intervention of a cross industry kind of group coming together, and we were talking about strategic CSR opportunities. Because if you speak to any of the advertising gurus, they would say that behavior change is the most difficult thing to go after.
Right.
So I think along with the waste management guys and the people from WASH, we would actually need the best of the advertising and PR world to come together, maybe form an intra sector.
We get it moving towards the goal of creating awareness. I'm going to have to cut you down. I'll cut you here short. I'm really sorry, because I'm being told that I have overrun time. I'm really sorry to do this,
Sure.
But yes, I get the point. But that was the worry I had expressed earlier, that if our malformations are becoming avenues for creating profit, and that is becoming the bigger problem. And I think the fact that you are raising it, and you have raised it in other forums as well as this, is clear indication that we are aware of this pitfall, and how we need to sort of circumvent it. Thank you so much, everybody. And back to you, Neha.
Well, thank you, Urmi. Thank you so much. We can all download the WASH report of the top 10 impact investment ideas from our website, aspirecircle.org or aspireimpact.in. At the end of the report, there is also a list of 100 startups and investors to see the momentum in each idea. We are here to serve the cause of impact leadership and an impact ecosystem development. With that, I would like to thank you all for attending today. I'm delighted you could join us for this special occasion. So thank you and stay safe. If there still are any other questions, do send them on the chat box. We'll leave it open for the next 2 or 3 minutes. We will collect them and try to get them back to you if possible. Well, thank you again and stay safe.
Thank you all. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you all for attending.